You forgotten about Brink? Brink was a game that came out in 2011 developed by Splash Damage and published by Bethesda Softworks. Splash Damage, known for making a number of multiplayer modes in games from Gears of War and Batman Arkham Origins, and also the pretty popular free-to-play multiplayer game Dirty Bomb. I hate that I have to say this, but Bethesda did not make this game. I'm only saying this because I remember a lot of people shitting on Bethesda for the development of this game. Bethesda nowadays gets enough shit, so I figured I could lesser the blow from what they used to receive. Either way, this is about Brink, so let's go back and let's talk about the Brink Retrospective. Brink was officially announced during E3 2010 after being delayed since spring of 2009. They announced the release date to be May 17, 2011 until pushing it forward to May 10, 2011 as an attempt to get this game into consumers' hands as quick as possible. The reaction at first was seemingly really well, and honestly, why wouldn't it be? From the first trailer and interviews, the game was promising a lot. 2 full, unique stories, multiplayer, and single-player mode, along with character customization and a pretty well-sized armory of weapons. Taking a look at a lot of the likes to dislikes on the trailers on YouTube, they're really positive. The comments, however, are a different story. Taking a look at the critics' scores, it's a bit of a confusing mess, ranging from 2 out of 5 stars to 8 out of 10 on other sites. So what exactly is going on with Brink? And let's go ahead and start with the story. Brink takes place on a ruined future on the Ark. The Ark is sort of like a giant boat where a lot of people live. After global warming caused much of the planet to be uninhabitable, there's a struggle with how to handle the resources on the Ark. The security forces live with better environments with little extra resources like water rations and food rations, while refugees are forced to live in lesser areas while also receiving less rations. The interesting part is deciding which faction you choose to side with. This isn't going to grant you with any benefits, and it's strictly just how you play the story. And unfortunately, Brink doesn't really expand on the story. I really do enjoy picking the side you choose to fight on, but past that, it feels like a background piece as you kind of just blow through missions. Each objective just kind of feels the same, and it's hard to decipher what exactly you are doing in each mission. With an arrow pointing you right at the objective, it's easy just to switch to the appropriate class and get it over without any connection to what's actually going on. I personally think the problem stems from the developers trying to combine the single and multiplayer to feel the same. All of the missions can be completed online with people playing on your team or against you. A really interesting mechanic, but in the end I felt like it ended up hurting Brink more than helping. I would have much more enjoyed a story with a little bit more of a focus. Maybe start off as a security force member and learn some sort of type of corruption that is happening in the security forces, and you have to make a decision to stay with the force or join the refugees. At that point, the game could open up a little bit more with your choices and what you want to do. I just think the whole choose what side you're on greatly limited the game unintentionally. With the whole story being able to be played online, you have an experience that doesn't feel like a story, more than just a bunch of missions tangled together with no real connections. It really is awful because the concept has a lot of potential, and the voice acting and audio logs had a lot of work put into them. In a lot of ways, Brink's audio logs were way more of the story than it should have been. I wonder where else that was used and didn't work out so well. And yes, I know there are cutscenes, but many of them just feel so unattached to the game, they really add almost nothing to the experience. Let me go over any of the security forces for you. You guard some kind of shield generated from being hacked, then are treated to this cutscene.
So now you've seen it all. The resistance triumphant and security victorious. More or less. Well, life on Ark staggers on. We fight, we scream, we pound our fists. Apes returned to the sea. And things keep falling apart. Always have, always will. Who knows what we'll have to face next?
I really think is hinting at a sequel, which, well, we can get into that later. Brink's story, as interesting and unique as it is, to me feels like it holds itself back. Luckily, in the gameplay department, Brink was incredibly unique in some aspects, so we have a lot to go over here. I'm going to start with the character creation, as it was a very big draw for me getting this game. And unfortunately for me, the character customization wasn't that in-depth, or at least not as much as I thought it would be. The character customization just boils down to different outfits that don't actually change anything. Having a heavier armor set doesn't mean you'll have more armor, it just means you have a bigger armor set. Simple as that. I understand that they kind of had a size difference with small, average, or big with unique attributes, but I kind of wish the clothing and armor played a more unique aspect of it. You know, wearing less clothes, you go a little bit faster. Wearing heavier armor, you're slower, but you got more health. It just makes sense to me that way. But like I said, they opted for the body styles, with the small body size having low health, but just a bit quicker and can do a little bit more of the parkour jumps. The middle size is average at each, not too fast, and offers a little bit more health. And then the big size, well, you probably guess what I'm going to say here. More health, less mobility. Shocking. Worst part is I never really found myself branching out past the middle size very often. It just made the most sense to play a build that was in the middle ground. The game also features perks that can be unlocked by leveling up. Some perks are class specific, while other ones are just given to characters in a general sense. For example, the engineers can get auto turns, while reloading while running is a general perk. I like this, but it offers some incredibly unbalanced builds. As these perks transfer over to online play, a level 1 engineer won't have the same equipment as a level 5 engineer who spent all of their upgrade tokens on the engineer class. Using the engineer with a shotgun is a great combo because engineers can actually buff themselves. Really, any gun is good to use with the engineer because of the buff, but this buff turns the shotgun into a one-hit kill, which is a great combo when the game is based around it. And that brings us to the next aspect of the game, and that is objectives, which are easily the worst aspect in the game. The objectives really aren't unique in any aspect. Normally you run to a spot, hold F until the object is complete. Sometimes it takes 10 seconds, sometimes it takes a minute. Unless you're on the defending team, then you can build walls on some levels and just make sure the enemy doesn't hold F long enough. I prefer defending just for the fact you don't have to be stuck immobile for 30 seconds just hoping the AI protects you. The most unique aspect about this game is the smart movement, which is just a fancy way of saying this game has parkour, and that brings us back to the character sizes. The smaller you are, the more jumps you can get into. This would sometimes open up some unique paths, but honestly I never saw much use in them. I'd rather just take the extra health over the occasional parkour that doesn't really get you too much farther anyway. The only play this is kind of fun to use in is the challenge parkour this, which is just an open area where you have to climb onto pillars and reach certain areas. Brink had really high expectations that didn't quite live up to. You had a very ambitious sounding game with unique movement, classes, objective-based gameplay, single, co-op, and online play. Brink was sounding like a solid class-based shooter but fell oh so short. With the game's objectives being forced to certain classes and the AI never helping you, it kind of forces you to play it a certain type of way. And this pretty much kills any type of replayability, which in a certain way was Brink shooting itself in the foot. Having objectives that could be done by every class, but just certain classes excelled at, would have been a much better way to go about this. Looking past perks, I think guns should have also been class locked as well, just to give each class a little bit more reason to test them out. After getting very comfortable with the engineer, I didn't want to switch to any other class until I was forced to do the objectives. Now this all would have been fixed with an online co-op playthrough, but I think that's part of the reason why it held itself back, is that they forced each game mode to be the same thing. Brink feels like a really poor hero shooter mixed in with some of your most generic linear stories. Brink would have been excelled if it gave you any type of freedom past what team to play on. In the end, it feels like Brink doesn't know what it wants to be. A class shooter, an FPS that's just sort of more on the generic side. It sort of falls in the middle of every category you can think of. Brink was a disappointment to most, but still got some halfway decent scores, getting 8 out of 10 from Eurogamer, a 4 out of 5 from GameStop, and holding an average of around 70 on sites like Metacritic, while getting 2 out of 5 on Giant Bomb and 2 out of 5 on Joystick as well. So why were the scores so varied? I think a lot of the sites get stuck on either the hype or the somewhat unique player movement. The game is truly unique in story and some of the gameplay aspects as well, but in execution it fell short in a variety of departments. For some odd reason, I don't remember when, Brink is free to play on Steam, so if any reason you wanted to try it, you can. But is it worth it? Even with some friends, the game just isn't as enjoyable as almost any of its competition. TF2, Overwatch, Battlefield, and even a game made by the same development, Dirty Bomb, and just about any other multiplayer game that is available is going to offer you more than Brink does. With some really bad AI and confused gameplay direction, there isn't much to salvage here. The most this game offers is a story that doesn't quite reach full potential and some sort of unique movement. In the end, Brink was a very underwhelming game with not a lot to it. And at the end of this retrospective, I want to talk about possibilities of sequels, and Brink, I'm going to go ahead and say, is a probably to definite no. Unless some other studio saw its potential and grabbed its unique aspects and turned it into something amazing, I highly doubt a sequel will be made when this game came out in 2011.